Hello again, FA Nation. Justin Fensterman here, and welcome to episode 2 of Fantasy Football ADP TV, as we're looking at some of the average draft positions heading into the 2023 fantasy football season. Here are a couple of players whose ADPs I like, and a couple of others who I don't like right now. Let's hit the board. Let's talk some players. Let's get you ready for your fantasy football drafts. The first player I like when it comes to average draft position is quarterback Justin Herbert at around 54. Were Herbert's numbers down a bit last year overall? Yes, but we have a lot to take into consideration. The Chargers had injuries on the offensive line and at receiver, and Herbert himself injured his ribs early in the season and played through the pain for the rest of the way. He didn't throw as many touchdowns as he did in the previous 2 seasons, but he charted his strongest completion percentage of his career, completing over 68% of his passes. He has a lot of options to throw to, including Austin Eckler, who remains with the team after offseason drama, and the Chargers added Quentin Johnston as well, giving Herbert another big target. Even dealing with all of the health issues last year, he still threw for over 4,700 yards, and he finished as a top 10 fantasy football quarterback. The offensive line is strong and healthy, he's an accurate passer, and his late 5th round average draft position is certainly appealing. Another player who I like where they're being drafted right now is from the Tennessee Titans, their tight end Okonkwo. Even though Okonkwo is more of a tight end too, there's definite intrigue after what we saw late in the season last year, and with him going currently in the 11th round of fantasy football drafts in 12-team leagues, it's definitely possible that he could finish as a tight end 1. Not only did he lead all tight ends who were targeted at least 30 times last year by charting over 14 yards per reception, but from week 12 through the end of the season, he posted the 7th most fantasy points among the position, and that was for the most part without Ryan Tannehill because he had injured his ankle. Tim Kelly was the passing game coordinator last season for Tennessee, and he'll now be Mike Vrabel's offensive coordinator heading into this year. Are they still going to lean heavily on Derrick Henry? Of course. But beyond Treylon Burks, the receiving core is certainly questionable. Okonkwo even averaged nearly 8 yards after catch per reception, which is very impressive. I expect his draft stock to rise a bit over the next couple of months. Among the expected top targets, he's their biggest receiver size-wise, and I'm expecting him to be more involved in the offense, and he will be my tight end 1 on at least one of my fantasy football teams. No more Austin Hooper as well should open things more up for him. Now for a few players whose average draft positions I really don't like right now. Let's start with Lamar Jackson from the Baltimore Ravens. We all know how athletic Jackson is, but the ADP is just too high for my liking. He's not the most accurate passer, completing fewer than 63% of his passes, and while the rushing potential is another layer for his fantasy production, he's paid the price for it by missing multiple games in both of his last 2 seasons. Even having the protection of a strong offensive line, the wear and tear on his body is a bit concerning in his young career. Baltimore ran the ball the 7th most times in the league last season. Baltimore's backfield has been banged up as well, putting more pressure on Jackson to run the ball, and with a questionable receiving core going in, besides Mark Andrews of course, it's hard to invest a 3rd round pick in Jackson when you have more accurate passers and solid QB producers being drafted after him right now. He has more weapons now, but he'll still run the ball himself a good amount, and it's too hefty of a price tag to pay for a guy who hasn't been able to hold up in back-to-back seasons. Another ADP I don't like right now is Christian Watson from the Green Bay Packers. This is another situation that while we know the talent is there and that he'll be one of Jordan Love's top pass-catching targets, he still is a bit boom or bust heading into 2023. Love has started in just 1 game, and we saw it took a bit for Watson and Aaron Rodgers to connect. Watson had a few good games in the middle of the season last year, but despite getting targeted no fewer than 5 times in his final 5 games of the 2022 regular season, he couldn't hit the 50-yard mark in receiving yards in 4 of those games. Watson suffered through various injuries in the early going, and he had a problem with drops at times during the year. Green Bay was middle of the road when it came to how many times they ran the ball, but with Love starting under center, I could see the Packers leaning on their ground game a bit more for a good portion of the season while Love finds his way. Love has very little experience, and Watson will see top corner coverage, and let's also not forget that Aaron Jones will be plenty active in the passing attack as well. Watson has solid speed and explosiveness, but late 3rd, early 4th round value attached to him, there are other receivers going around then that are safer to draft, especially with the unknown of how effective Love will be from the get-go as he takes over as the team's starting quarterback. And that is episode 2 of ADP TV, FA Nation. Get ready for your fantasy football drafts by checking out all of our great content in our fantasy football living draft guide here on fantasyalarm.com. Get in to win, start the prep right now because it's go time, and let's win 2023 by crushing our fantasy football drafts.